Peace to the tribe, peace to the collective. Today, I'm coming with a brief message on the holographic universe. Uh, Last night, went to sleep, had a dream, and in that dream was a message. So, for those who, you know, are just looking for some spiritual direction, some spiritual ease, some spiritual information, this will be a good message to kind of lock into and tap into because we are dealing with the nature of reality. And so, in reference to the nature of reality, peace, no human being has created the nature of reality. So when it comes to this world that we live in, we are more prone to learn from other human beings about life. And so when their information doesn't fit our worldview or doesn't fit our formula, then we're like, damn, who else do I turn to? Or do I turn to myself? Or do I go to church? Or, you know, what am I supposed to do in trying to figure out my life? And this brings us to the concept of complex, where most people hear the word complex and think of the concept of difficult or hard. Uh, Basically, this word was the first word that came into my messaging was it's just utilizing and combining different elements and different things in a combination force. And that's what reality is. It is simple elements and things combined together so perfectly. And another way to understand the complexity of the reality is through order. Another way to understand how things get fucked up is entropy or disorder. So the impetus on an individual is to understand what is complex, what is complicated, what is intricate, so you can actually build your universe. If you don't know how to build your universe, then you won't understand how to be happy with life. Even though you might experience good things and have money or whatever you got going on, it's always going to be something missing if you don't understand the nature of reality. But the nature of reality is rather complex, even though it's in the Bible, even though it's in the Rig Veda, people still don't take the time to learn it or gather it because it requires you to understand, overstand, and understand something that is complex. But with it being complex, it's not an excuse not to understand it. Why? Because something that's complex is surrounding or all encompassing. The nature of life and reality itself surrounds us all. Therefore, something complex is also something that a master must grasp or comprehend. So, in reference to complex, it breaks down into two words: with and to weave, or together or braid, twine, intertwine. So nature then is a weaving of reality. And us to understand that particular weaving or braiding is understanding how we can actually create. So this brings me to Revelation chapter 4, verse 6. Now, an important feature of this understanding have been things that have been laid out before you, but most people, because of who I am, right? And that's just the real, right? People are not gonna think that they need to do chakra work to understand the nature of reality. And one, like I'm not the end all be all in reference to chakra work, but chakra nova is a very simple, very well researched, very intuitive process to get you to one would call the seven spirits of God or the seven chakras. So one could begin to see the front of the throne, which looked like a sea of glass or clear as crystal. Because not separating Revelation from the Bible, because one cannot separate revelation from anything. It is an act. So to reveal the true nature of reality is also to reveal who you truly are, not from an egocentric point. This is my life, this is my kids, this is my house, this is my business, this is my career, this is who I am as a soul. So this requires the activation of seven chakras, which many courses, a book, many videos on said subject. So I'm saying all of that to say it's easier said than done, right? And ultimately, you want to build your universe because every day you wake up, you are inside of your body. You have been in friend groups, jobs, relationships. Some of y'all done even been to county jail for a couple of weekends. You always wake up in your body. So, in understanding that you are waking up in your body, you're not awakened to who you are because the body takes full dominance in your perspective. So then why is activating the chakras important? Because you have to begin to shake away that perspective to recognize who you are as God. And the reason that I know you are God is because we live in a holographic universe and there is only God. I'll explain this. There is only God, okay? And everything within the universe is God, including you. This is the revelation. This is the time that we're living in. So it's important for me to do videos like this where on my algorithm I see them talking about the same thing all the time. And it's like, okay, I feel like it's a reason for that. And it causes me to get deeper into my spiritual development. So in reference to Revelation, it takes a lot of its mythology and mythos from Daniel. And the reason for that is because Revelation and Daniel all take place in the Babylonian Persian uh, Empire. So you know how the Bible cherry picks different mythologies from all over the Middle East. Daniel and Revelation are one of those areas where they're like synonymous. So, in reference to Daniel, I've been getting messages from Saint Michael in reference to Revelation. But in Daniel, I'll come back to, I'm in chapter 11 now, but I will come back to chapter 10, where it explicitly talks about how Daniel was visited by archangel who want to get in contact with their guardian angel. One has to fast for 21 days or not, right? Don't fast for 21 days. But I'm giving people basic fundamental formula for spiritual experiences. And part of spiritual experiences is separating from the archonic or immaterial or dead reality and getting into the real reality, which is within yourself. So the ability to fast for 21 days is possible for most people because for most people, they have a system that can adapt to any situation. But understanding the power of yourself requires you to rely on yourself and not rely on food or rely on sex or rely on alcohol or rely on this, that, and the third. So back to chapter 11 and the reason why I feel called to do this video to talk about this particular, because it is a stream of consciousness. It is something that is very complex. It is a weaving, but I always put out videos with the hopes that someone is listening and trying to understand themselves at a spiritual level. And in reference to it being complex doesn't mean that is out of order or impossible. It is a weaving of simple elements to create or construct a universe in a reality based upon what we know already. So in chapter 11, verse 33, it is stated, people who are wise will help many to understand, but for some time they will be defeated by swords and flames. So I resonate with this because in the midst of my struggles, in the midst of being defeated by swords and flames, my biggest problem is that I'm not able to assist, right? That's the thing that bothers me the most, right? They will be captured and looted. Now, we're also talking about the Hebrews or the Israelites, and I received this message as well in reference to the Levites as a priest class. So when we reference Saint Michael, okay, we're also referencing Ogun. So for those that are children of Ogun, such as myself, we represent a class of warrior priests. And another way of saying that, a new age way of saying that, is a class of spiritual warriors who have religious duties So, and I'm saying all of this to say, society doesn't give a fuck that you want to do this, right? So, in order for me to do what I do, as far as YouTube, um, doing spiritual videos and stuff like that, shit, I gotta do a lot of other shit on the back end just so I can show up like this. Because if I didn't do the shit that I basically like the shit that I have to do to like, regular shit, then I wouldn't even be able to be here. It's a lot of sacrifices that I personally make to show up for the collective in an authentic way. Because my primary duty as a Levite, as a spiritual warrior class of individual, is to assist the priests, to guard the sanctuary, to teach the law, to perform as a musician, a temple official. But there is no job application for that role. And if nobody creates that role, when you have the need to express the God within yourself, you have to create that job for yourself. If it was a matter of if I got paid a lot of money to do this, I would not be here. The time that I gotta carve out in my day is shit that I gotta do right now that I'm like, yeah, I gotta put that on hold so I can do what's true and right as far as spreading out the correct message. So we're talking about the archonic forces that exist in the world that create division. And that division then creates a war. Because I will go through all of chapter 11, but it's talking about this large, huge war that's taking place, right? But then when we look up war in the metaphysical dictionary, what are we discussing? Megiddo, predatory incursions, a crowded place of troops, right? It's a lot going on in the war, but once again, where do these wars take place? The gathering together of hordes of error thoughts and consciousness. So once again, we're talking about the nature of reality and your purpose within this nature of reality. And you're trying to figure out what your purpose is in reality. That is not a hard thing to figure out. And the ways for which I can help you figure it out is by relieving your mind of the inundation of the many thoughts that you have, the thousands of thoughts that you have, the gathering together of the hordes of the error of thoughts, because you're going to minimize the thoughts and you're going to pull yourself into a meditation. And this meditation is going to strengthen and larger your frequency, because the frequency just allows you to capture what is rightfully yours. So when you have so many thoughts taking place on what you should do for your career, what you should do in your relationship, what you should do for your job, what you should do for your family, what you should do for the internet, so forth and so on, this is a gathering together of hordes of pure thoughts and consciousness that make war against the truer and higher thoughts and ideals of the individual. So when we're reading Daniel chapter 11 and it's talking about the war, we can get caught up in what war is actually taking place. And there is only one war taking place, and that's the war within ourselves. To be able to create and build and understand how to build. Because once again, if I wake up inside of my body, that means I have to build my reality. If you wake up inside of your body, that means you have to build your reality. Can we build a reality where we'll build one together? Maybe. But who's to say that we're even going to want that long term? So it's important to, if you're a part of this class of people, to understand the nature of reality. And this is a message that is being bestowed. As they are being defeated, they will get a little help, but many who are not sincere will join them. And this part of the spiritual journey ain't for the weak. It ain't for the weak, because you will feel like you found your tribe. You will feel like you have found the people that's really serious about everything that you're serious about. But once again, you will get little help. Why? Because many who are not sincere will join you. This is part of the spiritual process. And this is the point where a lot of people, they stop because they got their heart broke, or their expectations wasn't met, or they view the whole spiritual process as dirty or sneaky or untrue. But we got to get to a greater point of why this is happening. Some of the people, some of the wise people will be defeated in order to refine, purify, and make them white until the end times. But the appointed time is still to come. So after this long period of time where people exist 100% in the matrix, wherever you go, every class you go to, you're never going to go to college and they're going to teach you about magic or metaphysics or subatomic principles in order to build your universe. They're going to only teach you what they know. We are entering into a time and a dimension where people will begin to see that this reality is a mere holograph. And in order to understand the vibrations, the frequencies, the dimensions, one just has to slow down their consciousness, improve their frequency, and simply adjust to the order that already exists by factoring in light as true consciousness. So in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, this has a lot to do with what is going on in the world today. Where it is stated, I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. So the doubt, insecurities, fears, the wars, the negative thoughts, negative energy represents the affliction and poverty. but you don't even understand the nature of reality. And when you do, you will come to understand this verse to be an absolute truth. You are rich. And one would say, I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and they are not, but of the synagogue of Satan. And so we're talking about crafters of our reality through education, not through experience, not through assistance, but a specific way of separating you, indoctrinating you, brainwashing you, mind controlling you, ignoring you, uh, creating secret sites, secret information, government, imaginary boundaries, taxes, jobs, all of these particular things in the name of good economy building. All of these things, you might have to ask yourself, why is this reality so pervasive? Why do I have to pay all of this money every month? Why do I have to have all of these emotions, all of these thoughts, all of these confusions? What is taking place in this world that I'm missing, that I'm not understanding? You are missing two other dimensions in reference to your soul and your spirit, which enters into the fifth dimension, which we only have as a priest class of people. But we are not educated in the cultivating of those fourth and fifth dimensional properties that we actually have. And that's just basic, but there's also even more dimensional properties in reference to your DNA, in reference to the strands that we do not get access to because, once again, we're not meditating and we are not strengthening our frequency. So let's break it down in a way that is so understandable, even a baby could get it. If you wanted to tune into a specific frequency, i.e., radio station, what would you do? You would turn the dial to 92.3 R&B jams, and as long as you was in a particular area, you can listen to R&B 24 hours a day. Now, if for some reason you wanted to listen to R&B and you got in the car and you went and you heard static and all types of different weird radio frequencies, you would then think this radio don't even work. That is the nature of reality for most individuals. They have so many different thoughts, so many, their brain and mind go into so many different directions that their ability to hone in, to focus, to strengthen their particular frequency gets replaced by what? Money. But in Revelation 2, verse 9, it is not speaking about money because money wasn't created. You are rich before and after money because rich is related to a particular dimension that these people who are of the synagogue of Satan do not have access to. They have access to the three dimensions. And within this third dimension, they can create a perversion that is called money, that has nothing to do with consciousness or light, which, if you had any common sense, you would know that light is the true consciousness. What am I talking about? So, light and growth. light is essential for plant growth. So, plant growth is a particular order for things to grow. Like it is not random. Like a daffodil is a daffodil because of order. But in order for it to grow, it needs light, it needs consciousness for it to be its true divine self as said daffodil. The consciousness of the sun or light, when it shines on a tree, when it shines on grass, when it shines on a flower, it is the same consciousness. However, it is the ordered cell structure, it is the meditative approach that then allows said entity to grow and be what it is meant to be. So I'm saying all of this to say, when you are approaching life from a meditative point of view and you are absorbing enough light, your growth and development, your magnetizing principle, it is as like sure as a daffodil is going to become a daffodil. So, in reference to Daniel being seen by Archangel Michael, I felt as though I've always felt like this. You know, Michael Talbot, he's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and understanding, and he have since transitioned. But when you understand the holographic universe, you also understand that you can contact and deal with anybody who is on the other side. Because everything that kept a human being alive is the energy that exists within you. But when we don't see beyond the veil or understand beyond the veil, we are only understanding life from a three-dimensional perspective. Being able to communicate with the dead is a fourth, fifth dimensional aspect that anybody can access within themselves. And I mean that in reference to those who have ears and those who have eyes, those who have a soul. Your ability to cultivate your soul is to hone in the channel or the frequency of your soul. So when it comes to communicating with the dead, when it comes to wisdom, you know the pathway to access it. And even if you don't know the pathway of accessing it, you know that having a multitude of thoughts and desires is not the pathway of accessing it. So the holographic reality is not just found in the Bible, it is found in Sanskrit, Chinese, Africa, Buddhism, and this concept is called Indra's net. And Indra's net is either called Indra's jewels or Indra's pearls. Now, we're going to talk about something that makes it the mythology scientific, but also helps us understand the nature of reality, which our reality is a hologram. And in order to build your reality is based upon your knowledge of knowing that this reality is a hologram. Because if you think it's not a hologram and if you think it's so real, then you are inundated by thoughts, emotions, feelings that are only going to keep you in your own shell. So once again, Francis H. Cook describes Indra's net as this: far away in the heavenly abode of the great god Indra, there is a wonderful net which has been hung by some cunning artificer in such a manner that it stretches out infinitely in all directions. In according with the extravagant taste of deities, the artificer has hung a single glittering jewel in each eye of the net. And since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in number. There hang the jewels, glittering like stars in the first magnitude, a wonderful sight to behold. If now arbitrarily select one of these jewels for inspection and look closely at it, we will discover that in its polished surface there are reflected all the other jewels in the net, infinite in number. Not only that, but each of the jewels reflected in this one jewel is also reflecting all the other jewels, so that there is an infinite reflecting process occurring. So when we read Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, we can begin to understand what is being stated when it says, I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. But are you honing into the frequency that exists within you? See, there is a problem here. There's a real problem here. In order for you to affirm your richness, you have to have money, you have to have worked hard, you have to have had to see it or to experience it. And in those particular dimensions, you'll never experience or feel it in the way that you think you're going to feel it, because the feeling of richness is already at play. But I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews or are jewels, right? Because what is Indra's net also called? Indra's jewels. If you're jewels, right? Angels of God, right? And in everything, in every person, in every situation, you are seeing the same thing. Now, if it's scattered to you, if it's confusing to you, if it's not making sense to you, let's start to hone in on these particular metaphysical principles that create the reality for which we live in. So, there are two ways that light presents itself in the world. It is called a wave particle duality. It means that light behaves either as a wave, which is fuzzy, not really clear, kind of confusing, or as a particle, which is quote unquote concrete. It feels concrete. You think of it as concrete, but that's because the whole world is a hologram from the beginning. So, what is the problem here with what we are talking about? When they say, when they give you statistics, when they tell you about how things are supposed to be, when you think that things are supposed to be it because you've experienced it, and subconsciously, unconsciously, the things that you have gone through in your life that have conditioned you to create this world around you. But the reality is this: the people in your life are not connected to the seven seals or the seven spirits of God. The seven spirits of God are within you. So your ability to look at the world, your ability to create your world, is a process that you have to actually cultivate within yourself. Now, we would know this problem to be a very complex problem, but complex is not difficult, it is not hard, it is not unattainable, it's not impossible. It just requires you to hold fast, master, and comprehend the nature of reality. That is a hard thing to understand. That's why it has to be revealed to you. So one then will say, well, what is going on? What must I do to start building my reality? You start building it through the process of meditation, which is going to bring your light wave particle into a wave frequency. It's going to be hazy, it is going to be formable, it is going to be malleable, and you are going to mold it in your mind through your mode of meditation, through your mode of relaxing. And when you wake up out of that meditation, reality has no choice but to acquiesce to how you mold it, because there is not multiple worlds. There isn't a fucked up world for you and a good world for her. You are already rich. But have you sat and worked with your frequency? Or are you judging your life based upon how much money or how many hus you have at the crib? So we are understanding light as a particle wave duality. And in order to understand how to create the particles, we have to understand how to work with the waves. You don't get to work with the waves in the beta state. The beta state is the particle, it is the fixed reality. But once again, when we understand about reality, none of it is fixed. It is all illusionary in its existence. There is no such thing as a solid reality. So we're understanding consciousness and observation. Light is consciousness. Light is knowledge. Observation is what you choose to understand or view based upon your knowledge. The more you learn, the more you begin to observe the world differently. And at first, you may observe the world, not very much differently when you hear knowledge, but the more you hear it over and over again, it starts to resonate with you, start to look at the world differently, start to look at yourself differently, and now you are actually building your world based upon your soul. Because the ability to observe is the fact that you are God. Because if you were a cat, you wouldn't be able to observe. If you were a dog, you wouldn't be able to observe. If you were an NPC, you wouldn't be able to observe. But if you have a soul, you are able to observe. And what does it mean to observe? In consciousness, it means to understand deeply intertwined concepts. What does this bring us to? Something that is very complex. And what is complex? It is composed of interconnected parts. The nature of reality is composed of interconnected parts. And those interconnected parts, as it pertains to us, is observation, consciousness, and light. Light being knowledge or consciousness. Your life is going to change based upon how much information improves your consciousness and improves your observation. So let's get deeper into the concept of light being consciousness. Across cultures and traditions, light has always been more than photons. It has symbolized life, clarity, awakening, and the divine. In the Tibetan book of the Great Liberation, the Great Light is described as the essential nature of mind pure, non-dual consciousness revealed at the moment of death. So this is the issue with consciousness. We only realize it till we're too old to do anything about it. And when people start talking about it, we like, man, get out of here with that old ass shit. We trying to get into this new shit. And it just goes on and on and on and on. So it's very important for young people to understand consciousness, because in reference to the young mind, they have everything figured out except consciousness, and they were not even going to listen to nothing you got to say in reference to consciousness. So this is why in ancient metaphysics and, even in Christianity, they love talking about death, because that's when people start to get it. But the purpose of revelation is to understand this light, to understand the spiritual soul-like consciousness, so you can live in it in this lifetime, not when you die. So Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, stated that he regards consciousness as fundamental and matter as a derivative from consciousness. So if matter, everything that you see, is a part of the whole of consciousness, this is ultimately showing us how we're going to be able to tap into this frequency easily, effectively. Why? People might look at my content and be like, man, that's simple. I'm looking for the more advanced stuff. But the advance is man-made to scam you out of $20,000 just to say that you was advanced. But you don't even understand consciousness, which is fundamental, which is a powerhouse that is existing right now under the surface inside of you right now. But the message is order or entropy. Order is reference to the work or the energy required to establish what you need to focus. If that is too complicated, you're not going to be able to focus with a lot of clutter going on in your house, in your room, in your bathroom, in your mind, in your car, in your workplace. That is entropy, and that entropy is not something that is happening outside of you. That entropy is something that's happening inside of you, and now you are just being able to reflect on the mirror of what's happening on the inside of you. So life is going to bring you into places and it's going to show you who you are. And when you see who you are, it's not going to be pretty all the time. And because it's not pretty, guess what we're going to do? I hate my baby daddy. I hate my baby mama. I hate my mama. I hate my daddy. And we don't have no reconcile for it, because everything is everything. And we're trying to separate ourselves into being the good, but honestly, the point of this thing is to understand the order within yourself. The structure organization to lower randomness. So what does this structure organization look like to the adept? This structure organization is what is called a ritual. And ritual is a spiritual order that also strengthens and lengthens your frequency. And the reason why you want to strengthen and lengthen your frequency, I'm about to explain. I have to do something at 12, and it's 11:56. I'm going to give you two more pieces to this puzzle. We're talking about a structured organization. So a rite is a formal act or procedure or religious observation performed according to an established manner. So everything in this world that we deem is real is not real. It is only ritualized through rites that over time prove itself to be established because it's, like a college got an admissions department, a sales department, an engineering department. It have been building on this college for centuries. So it seems real, and the information have been researched for years, every single day. But think about something that is real. When people stop going to the school, what's going to take over? The nature. It's going to just be in another abandoned building. Because the rituals that's being performed in this world, making us think that this world is real, is just holographic in its true root nature. So how does one, I would say, take the power in your own hand, create your own reality? One has to understand the subatomic realm. So subatomic, division into parts, into sections, brings us into atomic, which is pertaining to atoms. Atoms. An atom is a hypothetical, indivisible, extremely minute body that is the building block of the universe. In order to tune into the true building blocks of the universe, we got to understand two words. We have indivisible. An atom is indivisible. Okay? However, a subatomic particle is indicating division. How does something that's indivisible be divided? Well, this is because niggas don't meditate. In order to divide the subatomic from the atomic that starts to be the building blocks of your reality, one has to go back to the light where we have the wave particle duality. When you are in meditation, the wave is now a wave. Now, what can you do with that wave? You can start to formulate it and push it into particles. Now, does somebody got to give you permission? No. Does somebody got to hold your hand? No. Is you right for creating your reality? No. Is you wrong for creating your reality? No. The nature of reality is the nature of reality. The problem is we have been bamboozled outside of the nature of reality and have been told, slandered by those within the Bible that are part of the synagogue of Satan, that have created this infinite web of confusion for people all over the world. Millions, billions of people do not know what we have discussed over this past hour. So because of that, share this video to somebody who might benefit from it. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Like the video, it helps the channel the most. And I hope that y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. And this has just been a stream of consciousness in reference to the holographic reality. We talked about Archangel Michael, Michael Talbot, Daniel 11, Revelation 2 verses 9, and Revelation 4 verses 6. Dealt with some Hindu mythology, some websites, some etymology. You know how we go, you know how we do. You know what I'm saying? I'll catch y'all on the flip side, though. I gotta be somewhere. Peace.